You ever walk into a room knowing damn, well, everyone there's already decided who you are? That's how it started for me that morning at the firing range. You know what I mean? The looks, the smirks. I just gripped the handle of my old rifle case and pushed forward, boots scraping the gravel, jacket flapping. I must have looked out of place to every man in there. Civilian clothes, hair tied back. Nothing flashy. But I saw every exit, every face. Old habits die hard. Colonel Brennan met me with a laugh so sharp it could cut through steel, never mind the desert air. His voice carried 20 lanes of ego and gun oil, targets shimmering in the mirage. Everything about Brennan. Creased uniform, chest full of ribbons, screamed a man who never questioned his own authority. To him, women belong behind a desk, not a rifle. He was already explaining that to a pack of eager young sailors when I stepped up to the counter, not knowing I was about to upend his world. He leaned in. My clothes, measuring me and finding me lacking. Maybe try lane 1, for beginners, he suggested, loud enough to get a laugh from the peanut gallery. But I just laid my paperwork and the range fee on the counter. Lane 7, I said quietly, the long one. That got his attention. 1,000 yards, wind gusting, a challenge for anyone with pride. His eyes flicked to my case as I opened it. The worn stock and custom scope of my M4A6 gleaming in the sun. The laughter died. The joke stalled in the back of throats. I'd seen that reaction before. Men caught between disbelief and a sudden, uneasy curiosity. Brennan tried to recover, but his bravado sounded thin. You got insurance? He sneered. You miss? It's not our embarrassment. But I was already settling in, every motion practiced, breathing deep and steady. Every part of my body turning into the rifle's foundation. He couldn't help himself. $20 says she can't even hit the paper, he said to Sergeant Torres, who just stood there looking uncomfortable. And Brennan's confidence shriveled with every beep from the scoring system. No civilian shoots like that, he barked, desperate now. That rifle's not legal. That's military issue. He sent Torres to check, but everything was in order. Legal, proper, boring on paper. What he couldn't check was my story. My patience, more than any credentials, was what made his authority unravel. You could feel the shift. The defense contractors in their suits, the recruits who'd laughed. Everyone started realizing something was happening that didn't fit the old script. And Brennan, cornered and angry, tried a new attack. You're somebody's girlfriend, right? Some operator's plaything. His words poisoned the air, but I'd heard worse in worse places. His contempt was tired. But then Torres, loyal old Torres, found his nerve and looked at me differently. That's when the past caught up with me. Torres whispered, You're Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell, aren't you? Ghost of Kandahar. And for a second, the weight of everything I'd carried, the stories, the graves, the silence, pressed down. He told the recruits. The legend. The impossible shots that kept Marines alive in Afghanistan. The operations no one talks about except in shadowy bar corners, where even heroes get called liars for speaking of what they've seen. You know, people never ask what it costs to be good at something like this. They don't want to know. But Torres did. My daughter's middle name is Sarah, he told me. Because of you. I could feel eyes on me, the realization spreading. Every shot, every story, every rumor was real. Even Brennan, blustering and shrinking, started to understand the depth of his mistake. Stay stateside. No more deployments. Just teaching. I hesitated. You know how it is when purpose and exhaustion wrestle inside you. But looking at those recruits, kids, really, something in me softened. 0600 tomorrow, lane 7. I told them, surprising even myself. You want to learn, show up. Leave your ego at home. Brennan knew his reign was over. Nothing left but silence and the understanding that real authority comes from knowing what you're doing, not demanding respect. I started walking to my car, ready to disappear back into anonymity. But something held me. I turned around, went back, and taught those kids not how to shoot, but how to carry the weight, how to respect the silence between shots, how to honor those who came before. You want to know what justice looks like, what redemption feels like? It's not a speech or a medal. It's a quiet lesson at sunrise, where respect is given not because of who you are, but what you've done. I never set out to be a legend. I just kept doing the job. Maybe that's enough. So let me ask you, when you see someone walk in looking like they don't belong, do you measure them by your rules, or do you wait and see what they can do? Share your thoughts below. Right or wrong, justice or tradition, who gets to decide what a warrior looks like? The comment section's open. Let's talk.
You ever sit with your hands on the wheel, watching the sun melt behind the mountains, and realize you're right on the edge between walking away and stepping up? That was me, idling at the range exit, engine humming, the weight of the day settling into my bones. I could have kept going, vanished into the Nevada dust, left those kids and Brennan's mess behind. But something gnawed at me, a voice I hadn't heard since Kandahar. You don't get to quit just because you're tired. Not if someone still needs you. Yeah, that happened. So I turned back, slow and deliberate, feeling every mile I'd traveled to get there, and every ghost I'd tried to outrun. When I got out, Torres was waiting, looking nervous as a new recruit, but with a kind of respect in his eyes you don't see every day. He fell in step beside me. No salute, just a nod, like equals, and said, "They're still talking about you in there." Brennan's pacing the range like a lion with a thorn in his paw. I laughed, couldn't help it. Sometimes you gotta let a little humor in, just to keep from drowning in the seriousness of it all. The recruits were scattered in little groups, whispering, replaying phone footage, trying to make sense of what they'd seen. A couple of them straightened up when I passed, unsure if they should salute, shake my hand, or just stare. "You really taking over training, ma'am?" one asked. I looked him over, saw the hope and uncertainty mixed together in his eyes. I said 0600, didn't I? I replied, "Don't be late. This isn't a show, and I'm not your inspiration poster. You come to learn, you come ready. Everything else, leave it at the gate." I could feel Brennan watching from the shadows, face pale, fists tight. He tried to catch my eye, maybe looking for some kind of absolution, but I didn't give it to him. You know, sometimes you just have to let a man sit in the mess he's made. Torres pulled me aside, voice low. "You shook them, ma'am." In a good way. "But that contractor, Blackburn, he's already making calls. They want to buy what's in your head." I shrugged. "They can't afford it. What I know wasn't built with money." Just then, the Admiral reappeared, shoes crunching gravel, eyes clear as the Nevada sky. "Mitchell, walk with me," she said, the way leaders do when they're not asking. We moved past the edge of the range, desert wind cold against my cheek. She told me about snipers in Syria using my methods, men dying because someone leaked training I'd meant for our own. "I need you to train a new team," she said. "Not to deploy, to teach. This leak, this war, it's not over just because you came home." Let me back up a sec. Most people think when you're out, you're out. But the fight never really ends. It just changes shape. Your war follows you home. I thought I could live small, be invisible, but you can't hide from purpose. That's the thing. So I said yes. I'd train them. But combat, that part of me was done. Next morning, 0600 sharp, Fallon felt different. The air wasn't heavy with arrogance anymore, just anticipation. I stood in front of a dozen young faces, some nervous, some cocky, a few genuinely hungry to learn. I made them start from zero. First lesson, breathing. Second lesson, humility. One tried to crack a joke about women and targets. I just looked at him until he shut up. Respect is earned by the ounce, lost by the pound that we spend hours on the dirt. No fancy gear, no shortcuts. I showed them how to let the earth steady their heart, how to listen to the wind. You can't control the weather, I told them, but you can work with it. That's how you survive. I told stories, too, but only when it served the lesson. Not the legends. Those weren't for them. Not yet. Just truths about watching, waiting, patience, the kind that keeps you alive. Brennan never joined us. He watched from the sidelines, smaller than he'd ever looked. I caught his eye once and saw not anger, but a kind of regret. Maybe even respect. Or maybe he finally understood what real leadership was. You can't demand it. You earn it in silence, in moments when nobody's watching, but you'd up be why the end of that week. Half the recruits had washed out. Too soft, too stubborn, not willing to strip down their egos and start over. The ones who stayed, though, they changed. You could see it in how they moved, how they watched the world. They didn't need speeches. They needed an example. That's all. Sometimes, that's all any of us needs. I spent more days at Fallon than I meant to. Each sunrise brought new faces, new questions. "Why'd you come back, ma'am?" a recruit asked one afternoon as we cleaned rifles under the shadow of the bleachers. I thought about lying, making it pretty, but I owed them more than that. "Because my mother died right here, doing this," I said, voice quiet. "Because every shot I take is for her, and for everyone who never got to go home. Because you deserve better than Brennan's jokes." There were hard days. A couple of the contractors tried to dangle offers, six-figure salaries, private teams, the usual temptations. I turned them down flat. If you want shortcuts, hire someone else. If you want the real thing, you'll find it out here, in the dirt, with kids willing to bleed for each other. Hayes came back once, checked on our progress. She didn't say much, but her presence was enough. She gave me autonomy, let me build something honest. No secrets, no shadows. Just skill and grit, passed on the way my mother passed it to me. You know, people love a neat ending. They want to see the villain punished, the hero rewarded, justice tied up with a bow. But that's not how real life works. Brennan was never fired. He just faded into the background, a reminder of how quickly the world can leave you behind if you refuse to grow. The contractors stopped calling. The range became quieter, more focused. We built something new in the ruins of the old, but don't get it twisted. The ghosts didn't leave. Every morning, I still felt them, names inked on my ribs, the weight of old stories hanging in the wind. Some nights, I'd walk the range alone, talking to my mother, hoping she'd be proud of what I was building. Maybe that's why I stayed. And so, the story goes on. I became the thing I never thought I'd be, a teacher, a standard. The kids kept showing up, hungry for more than just targets and trophies. They wanted meaning, the kind you can only find by doing the work, day in, day out, until your hands ache and your heart learns to beat steady. Funny thing is, I started healing, too. Not all at once, not in any way that's easy to describe. But piece by piece, lesson by lesson, I realized that legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you live right now. And if that's all I ever do, teach a handful of young idiots to carry themselves with honor, well, maybe that's enough to let me ask you, one last time, what do you think makes someone worthy of respect? The medals on their chest or the scars they don't show? Would you rather be remembered for how loud you spoke or how true you were when it counted? Drop your thoughts below. Real change starts with honest conversations. Let's hear it.